you guys again for coming tonight. I've titled my short speech, Train Up Your Child. And I'm going to be speaking briefly from the New Living Translation Bible of Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6. And it states, "Teach your children to choose the right path, and when they are older, they will remain upon it." Other versions, they say, "Direct your children," or "train up your child." What I would like for you guys to do for the next couple of minutes is just sit and think about that as I speak on the topic of homeschooling. I was a homeschooled student from grade 6 up through graduation, and as I ran into people who would ask about my experience, I'd always get three common questions. One of them would be, is homeschooling really an equivalent education forum to public schools? Secondly, they would ask me, aren't homeschooled kids socially deprived and awkward? And lastly, they would ask, why? What are the benefits for homeschooling? Why should I homeschool? And I think that if you were to go out and research it yourself, you'd actually find the results to be rather fascinating. So I'll begin with the first question, and we'll go from there. The first question was, is homeschooling an equivalent education forum to public school systems? In my opinion, I would say no. I think it's actually much better in many ways. But here are just a couple reasons. Today, Americans are realizing more and more the decline of our public school systems. As a matter of fact, over 2 million students today are schooled from home. That's a 75% increase from the year 1999. And 73% of parents who are schooling at home do so because of their dissatisfaction with the American school system. Additionally, students at home typically score 15 to 30 percentile points above public school students on standardized academic achievement tests. This is research done by the National Home Education Research Institute. The second question that I get is, aren't homeschool kids socially deprived and just weird and awkward? And again, I would say no to that. The first thing I would say is we should recognize that the entire social experience comes from what we learn at home. If you are a father of children and you have a sexist attitude and behavior towards women, your son growing up from a young age is likely to have those same behaviors and attitudes because it's learned at home. On the other end, if you have a sexist father with daughters, they're liable to accept that as a norm because that's how it is at home. That's their social experience. Parents who intentionally teach their children about respect for the individual create much better opportunities for a positive influence to society for those kids. And lastly, homeschool kids have a much more consistent positive influence through the avenues in which they socialize. For example, I grew up mostly having friends through church. So that was my social experience outside of home. And on top of that, I would play soccer, and I also had a band time where I could play music with a group of people. In those respects, I was able to learn teamwork and how to work with people, even though they were outside of my family. And then lastly, the question that I get is, why? What are the benefits? Why should I homeschool? The first thing I would say to that is, I recognize that public school teachers typically are consumed with trying to teach to up to 30 students at any given time. And oftentimes, they find themselves teaching one certain way and to 30 students who all learn in different ways. What I struggle with so much is hearing a teacher trying to tell a parent that their child is failing because they can't adapt the way that they're learning to the way that the teacher is teaching. When you have the opportunity to homeschool a child, you give them undivided attention and it allows the parent teacher to adapt the way they teach to the way that their child learns. I want to reflect on that verse again. Those three different versions: teach, direct, train. During homeschool, you get the opportunity to teach certain values and topics that otherwise are not taught in public schools. Even topics, if you believe in God, commandments given by God. Other specific topics, such as evolution, are taught in public schools as truth, whereas creationism isn't even taught at all, not even as an opposing hypothesis to evolution. So, in conclusion, consider that verse. Teach your child in the way he should go. Parents, it is our responsibility to know what is being taught to our kids. Do we really want to leave that responsibility up to someone else who is going to likely impose their worldview, whether it be bad or good, onto your child? Or would you rather teach them to be a positive contributor to society? In the end, the choice is yours. I would encourage you to seek out more information and research why homeschooling would be better. Again, like I mentioned before, I think that you'll find the results are fascinating. Thank you.
And you did a